Welcome to part 3. I think it's part 3. Might be part 4. Part 3 I think it is. The reason why this arrived is because we thought it had a dead battery. Here's my voltmeter. That is the battery. As you can see, it's reading 222 millivolts. Let me just adjust the range to give us volts. For those that don't speak millivolts, sorry, should I say, that's 0.2 of a volt. That battery is well and truly dead. Well, I say well and truly dead, it's still got a little bit of life in it, but not enough life to keep the memory on this synthesizer alive. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace that battery with an aftermarket part. There's the aftermarket battery. Okay, that's going to go in there, like so. But before we replace that battery, I just need to know which way round is plus and which way round is minus. Now, the easiest way to do that is with one of these things here, just so it reminds me. And I'm just going to put a plus there and a minus there. That's just for me, but it's the easiest way of doing that. So that's how we're going to replace that battery. So my first task is to take the battery out. For that I'm going to use my trusty desoldering tool just to suck the solder off, because this is actually a battery that is soldered to the board. One of the great things about the way that this has been put in is I don't actually need to lift the board. I can probably do everything from the top with a bit of luck. So I'm just going to suck the solder off effectively and do it that way. Now this thing makes a hell of a din because it's got a pump on it, so I'm going to switch it on. Doesn't help if you switch it on at the mains, of course, which is down here somewhere. And just let it heat up for a second or so. I'll speed this bit up in the video. This thing takes about a minute or so to get up to temperature, but it should be hot enough now. So the idea here, a set of pliers, so I don't have to use my fingers, is to just there we go, old battery out. Clean up the pad a bit. And that looks like most of the old solder, in fact, hopefully all of the old solder is now off the pad. And as you can see, actually on the board here is the plus and minus sides of the battery that weren't visible when the battery was actually in place. A bit of dust around there. So I'm just going to clean that dust out around the battery, and then we can put the battery in. Haha! Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. So here's a tip for when you're soldering batteries into circuits. Make sure they're actually good. So again, here's the battery, and if I do that, should be able to see that this battery is pushing out 3.3 volts. And also what I've also done on here is I've marked the plus and the minus because they're not marked on the battery itself, just so I know which way around it needs to be soldered into the board. Okay, now good to go. Soldering iron's been switched on. It's got on and soldered the battery in. But before we do that, what we need to do is, because this battery needs to sit on the board square, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, with my pliers, bend out the tabs. Like that, and then I can remove the rubber contact protectors, just like well, it says just like that. They should just come off just like that. That one required a bit more force than I was expecting. And then that battery needs to go in there. Now, the one thing that's pretty obvious here is that that tab is a little bit longer than it needs to be. So what I'm going to do is just cut that short. Now, if I'm honest, that should have just been able to cut with the cutters, but it was a bit more stubborn. So these things are sent to trice. So let's get this pad tinned up properly. So as normal, that's the pads tinned up. I should really have my my auto vise here, but I don't. I'll use tin up the tabs. Bit more flux just to help it flow. I'm not happy with that because that I don't think is sitting properly. Not the neatest piece of soldering ever. Let's just see if it's making contact with the board. Well, that is attached. Although I'm not happy with the connections, but that is attached to the board, delivering voltage. Battery change completed. Okay, that's the battery changed. I've just tidied up soldering a bit, made sure that I get in 3 volts across the battery and across some of the components around the battery, so making sure that the battery is good and making good contact. The next thing to do is just to put some power on this and see if it is holding its memory. And if it is holding its memory, then we know that it was the battery that was causing the problem. Now I'm not going to do the holding the memory now. I will do a separate video because I've got to move it from here to the other location so I can actually hook it up to the amplifiers, etc., and find out. I'm not going to put it back together, so it's kind of going to be moved in a kind of semi-disassembled state. But for now, this job is done.